President Cyril Ramaphosa is due to reshuffle his cabinet, but this will make about as much difference as reshuffling the deck chairs on the Titanic. I explain why right after this. Ever since the policy conference of the ANC in December of last year, there's been much speculation about whether Mr. Ramaphosa will appoint new cabinet ministers. So we have a new deputy president of the ANC in the form of Paul Mashatile. He has his eyes firmly set on the deputy presidency of the country. Then we also have Fikile Mbulula, who is the newly appointed Secretary General of the ANC. That's apparently a full-time job. He will be exiting cabinet and a new transport minister will be appointed. We also have Thulas Mhesi, who's the Labour Minister, who's also been acting as the Minister for Public Service and Administration. That was since Ayanda Dlodlo left that cabinet position to take up a spot in the World Bank. That was back in April of 2022. So there are a lot of changes that are going to need to be made in the cabinet. I could go on, but the uncomfortable fact is that the cabinet reshuffle will make about as much difference to this government as reshuffling the deck chairs on the Titanic. The iceberg has already been struck, the hull is taking on water, and the ship is listing to one side. Unfortunately, this news hasn't made its way up from the engine room to the commanding deck. The captain appears blissfully unaware that his vessel is about to sink. So some commentators have suggested that the president's hand has been strengthened following his re-election to the party presidency. Now the president, so the argument goes, has been freed up. He can now move decisively against his rivals in the cabinet, like Lindiwe Sisulu and Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. These are the people who've been standing in his way. And this all sounds very familiar. You will recall this argument or a similar argument was made in the aftermath of the December 2017 conference 5 years ago. So back then, Mr. Ramaphosa, he apparently needed time to consolidate his power after his very slender margin of victory, or so the argument went. He needed to become president of the country before he could implement much needed economic reforms, we were told. Once his predecessor, Mr. Zuma, was finally removed from office in February 2018, those same commentators told us that Mr. Ramaphosa now required a fresh mandate from the electorate, which he duly sought and won in the May 2019 elections. After that, the excuses mounted, but the elusive promise of reform never materialized. As a consequence, South Africa has gone backwards on almost every measure over the last 5 years. So when we look at economic growth, that has averaged under 1%, so 0.7% between 2018 and 2022. Official unemployment remains stubbornly high at around 34%. So that's a third of South Africa's economically active population is without work. That is unparalleled in terms of developing markets like South Africa. And in 2019, there were 16 million people who were employed and 18 million people who were on welfare grants. In 2022, the number of South Africans with a job was down to 15.5 million, but the number of grant recipients, that skyrocketed to 29 million. Obviously, the COVID-19 pandemic wrought havoc on the global economy, but the South African government's ham-fisted response really exacerbated some of these problems. So if you recall the ban on cooked chicken, for example, the prohibition on open-toed shoes, all of this really greatly exacerbated the domestic economy's underperformance. And what is the biggest iceberg of them all? Well, that is Eskom. And the fate of Eskom, I think, provides an instructive example on the current administration's unwillingness to implement fundamental and not just superficial reforms. So we now hear that Gwede Mantashe, who's the Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy, and also the narrowly re-elected ANC chairperson, he wants to take over ministerial control of Eskom away from the Department of Public Enterprises, which is led by Minister Pravin Gordhan. And Mr. Mantashe very shrewdly backed Mr. Ramaphosa during the height of the Phala scandal last year. So he will be looking for a reward for his loyalty. So what does that mean? Well, I think Mr. Ramaphosa can move political control of Eskom to whichever ministry he likes. It's not really going to change the underlying problems. So last year, South Africa experienced its worst bout of load shedding in 14 years. In September of last year, 2022, They had more load shedding than in the entire duration of 2020. We've now started the first month of this year with rolling ongoing blackouts, including load shedding stage 6. So you can really move the administrative or political control of Eskom wherever you like. But unless you get much greater liberalization of Eskom, that means privatizing key aspects of generation and transmission, you're not really going to solve the fundamental problems there. You can also get a new CEO from the private sector. And what we saw with Andre de Ruyter was that he didn't really have the powers to take the decisions necessary to turn Eskom around. So all of that means is you need to relinquish political control and crowd in private capital into the electricity market in South Africa. Electricity, after all, is a consumer good just like any other. Why can't the ANC government accept this? Well, because it is inconsistent with its ideology of centralization and control of the so-called commanding heights of the economy. So even if Mr. Ramaphosa, as some commentators have urged, appoints more competent people to the cabinet, they would still adhere to the basic fundamental ideas and policies that have undermined economic freedom and done so much damage to the economy in South Africa. So while the ANC ship continues to take on water, opposition parties must now begin thinking about alternative strategies and inflating the life rafts of reform now. Because if a coalition of opposition parties does come to power in 2024, resolving the energy crisis in South Africa will be near the very top of its very long to-do list. So this will require some cool heads and an openness to new economic policy approaches from the incoming government. So I leave you with this. The only way to prevent the economy from drowning is for everyone to flee the sinking ship of the ANC and its harmful ideology. That's it from me, David Ansara at the Free Market Foundation. Before you go, just a big favor, please do hit that like button and also subscribe to the channel. And please do join us again for more content from me and the FMF team. Until next time, stay free.